I didn't plan the joke. It wasn't rehearsed or sharpened or meant to land like a blade. It slipped out the way careless things do when you feel safe, when the room is warm, when you believe the person across from you already knows who you are. We were halfway through dinner, the kind of place with cloth napkins and low light, the kind we saved for anniversaries or weeks when work hadn't beaten us both down. He was smiling, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a while, and I remember thinking this was good. This was us again, even if only for an hour. The conversation drifted the way it always did after the second drink. Memories, college stories, stupid things we used to argue about when we were younger. He teased me about how serious I'd been back then, how guarded. I rolled my eyes and said something about how I'd lived a little more than he thought. He raised an eyebrow, half joking, half curious. And instead of letting it sit there, instead of brushing it off, I made the joke. I laughed when I said it. I made it sound light, self-aware, like I was in on some harmless truth. I called it a number and shrugged, as if it was just another statistic, like how many apartments I'd lived in or how many jobs I'd quit before finding my footing. I didn't think about how it would land. I didn't think about what it would mean to him. I thought honesty, even wrapped in humor, was always better than silence. He didn't laugh. At first I thought he hadn't heard me. He stared at his plate, his fork resting against the edge like he'd paused mid-thought. I repeated myself, softer, with a smile that asked him to catch up to the joke. That's when he looked up. There was no anger in his face, no explosion, no sharp words. Just a kind of stillness that made the air feel thinner. He asked me if I was serious. I said yes, still trying to keep it casual, still not understanding that something had already shifted. He nodded once. He didn't argue. He didn't ask for details. He didn't tell me I was wrong or shame me or raise his voice. He stood up, placed his napkin neatly on the table and reached for his wallet. I remember thinking he was going to the restroom or maybe stepping outside to take a call. I watched him pay the bill, watched him thank the server with the same calm politeness he used everywhere. Then he looked at me, not with fury, but with a kind of distant resolve, and said he was leaving. I asked him what he meant. I asked if we could talk. He said he didn't have anything to say. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Then he walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft chime that felt louder than any slammed fist. I sat there alone, the candle flickering between two empty glasses, my joke still hanging in the air like smoke. On the drive home, I replayed it over and over. The exact words. The tone. The way I'd laughed. I told myself he was overreacting, that adults should be able to handle uncomfortable truths. I told myself it was his insecurity, his problem, not mine. But underneath that defense was something colder, something I didn't want to name. I'd seen that look before, just never aimed at me. It was the look of a man who had quietly redrawn a boundary and stepped back behind it. When he didn't come home that night, the silence stopped feeling dramatic and started feeling final. He didn't text. He didn't call. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how a single careless moment could outweigh years of shared life. The next morning, his side of the closet was untouched, his toothbrush still where it always was, but something essential was gone. Not him exactly. Whatever version of him had been sitting across from me at dinner. It took me longer than I want to admit to understand why that joke mattered. To him it wasn't about numbers or the past. It was about what I'd turned into something casual, something worthy of laughter. It was about respect and the way I'd treated it like a punchline instead of a promise. Sitting there alone, I realized I hadn't just told him something about who I used to be. I'd shown him how lightly I held something he had taken seriously. And once he saw that, standing up and walking away was easier than staying seated and pretending it didn't matter.